Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Oh, I've got some feedback coming on here. Anyway, never mind. Welcome to today's conversation on Gift of Healing TV. I'm Sarah Jane, and I'm delighted to be joined by my two co-hosts. Scott, hi, welcome. And David, hi, welcome.
Hi, and welcome from Scotland.
And we're joined this evening, and I'm going to be open and honest about this, by my youngest sister, Jaki King. Jaki, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation about embracing neurodiversity.
Hello from sunny Devon. Actually, it is still a little bit sunny out there. It's just starting to get dark from Devon. In England, not the one in the States.
Jaki, I'm going to ask you to share a little of your story here, because you absolutely are the right person to be talking about embracing neurodiversity because of your own diagnosis. So please share a little so that people know that actually you really are a person to listen to in respect of this.
I don't know. I think there are some members of my family who might say I'm not worth listening to, but anyway, let's go from there. So I'm newly 60, just sort of a couple of weeks 60, and I think that's very relevant because as a child I was the black sheep of the family. I was the naughty one, the one who didn't do what they were told, the one who was always in trouble, interrupting, doing all of these things, you know, bad school reports and everything else. And as a teenager, I was a bit of a tearaway, and I got myself into trouble, and I got pregnant as a single parent, you know, all these things that in a very Catholic family you just did not do. Then actually, quite sadly in a way, I was in a marriage that was an abusive marriage, and which is a little bit of a shame, you know, but that all helps us to be who we are today. Now, fast forward, I've been out of my marriage over 20 years now. Fast forward to when I was 55, and I was diagnosed as both ADHD and autistic. So I wasn't diagnosed till I was 55. And at that moment, it was the greatest gift, because suddenly I had the right instruction manual for life. I understood the way my brain worked, that I didn't have to try to fit in as much, because I'd been masking, trying to fit in, wondering why I didn't fit in, why I was always the one who was a bit different than somebody else, why social situations were so tiring and exhausting, why people would say one thing and you'd take them quite literally, and then they wouldn't do that thing or be that thing, or, you know, it was really confusing. And this last 5 years, or nearly 5 years, has been the most amazing journey of being able to step in to who I am, really, honestly, ethically, my values, who I am, just everything about me, embracing it and going, actually, that's all right. I'm okay. And if I don't quite work the way you work, that's all right. I can say to you, well, actually, I'm a little bit different, but that's all right. Because everybody's always expected us to accept who everybody else is, but they don't seem to be able to make those allowances back. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. So, Scott, do you want to feedback from that?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. There is a little bit of pride that I have in that you are willing to talk about it, and I love the fact that you have been able to embrace and say, "Hey, I'm different," and not have that expectation. I went through life thinking one thing in my head and being told to do something else in mine. I married at 20. I had 3 kids by the time I was 25. You know, all of the things that I was supposed to do. I was always supposed to wear the cape and save everybody else. I was always supposed to serve everybody else. I was supposed to do all of these things, and none of it was for me and how I wanted to express myself. And for you to be able to come forward and be able to speak so eloquently about being free of that and that expectation. It's all, Sarah and I talked about this, and it's about judgment. I travel quite a bit, and everyone says, "Isn't you're on a 24-hour plane flight to Malaysia or Vietnam? Isn't that terrible?" I said, "No, why?" And well, the cultures are so different. They're so different than what you're used to. I'm saying exactly, and it really opened my eyes to the diversity that we have around the whole world, how differently people adapt to different situations. How the Oriental culture, what they do, how they do it, isn't wrong. It's just very right for them. And so it's that acceptance of diversity that I've always really embraced, and judgment just falls away. I had a cousin growing up. He was completely deaf, but I always took the time to speak to him, and I learned and he read lips, and so we would communicate very well. And my brothers and sisters said, "Well, I can't talk to Jay." I said, "Why? I can't understand him." I said, "Have you taken the time?" And my daughter, who was multiply handicapped, she passed 15 years, but she communicated in different ways. She had no use of her legs. She really had no. She really couldn't do anything with it. But she was expressive through her eyes, through her attitude, through her postures. That I think, as only a parent can understand a child, we understood and could communicate. And so we were always surrounded in my entire adult life. I've always been surrounded by those who were a little different. And it's the acceptance of that is, I find that most people who haven't had to engage find a really tough time, because they've been in this little, very small, and this is the only way I'm going to see it. So I think it's absolutely extraordinary that you can express all of this now and be able to shine a light to those people who are listening, how it feels to be on the other side of that.
Thank you. And I think, it isn't always, it's not always a walk in the park, as they would say. There are definitely times, and there are challenges and everything else. And being neurodiverse is actually really exhausting. If you're going on a call like this, you've prepared, you've thought in your head, you've gone through all the potential scenarios of different things that can happen. And because you've got to do something social that, I love computers, because I'm talking to the computer's talking back, but I can turn it off whenever I'm tired. When you're in social situations, you can't really do that. You can't suddenly go, "Oh, I've had enough now and I'm going to walk out." I mean, you could, but it's just not quite the done thing. So it's not sort of quite socially acceptable. So it is very, people say quite often, "Oh, I'm a little bit that." And you go, "Yeah, you're a little bit that." Mine is all day, every day. Mine is from waking up in the morning and having no concept of the day, the time, the everything else. It's almost like you're relearning things, and you have to find memory joggers around you. I have alarms set on everything. I have photographs of family members and everything else around my home to remind me of my family, so that I've got memory joggers constantly, because my brain's a bit like a piece of Swiss cheese. So we could have this conversation now, and we could catch up tomorrow, and you could say, "You know that thing you said last night?" And I'd be going, "Oh, help, I don't remember." And I would be waiting for you to give me some hints and tips, some memory triggers of what it was. Because once you give me the memory trigger and found that way into my mind and my memory, then I could maybe repeat it parrot fashion from what we'd said. But until you give me that memory jogger, I have no recollection of it at all. So I'm the best friend. You can tell me anything you want to, and as long as you do not give me any memory joggers, I won't remember it, and I'll never repeat it to anyone else because I can't remember
it. David.
This is so fascinating. And I, first of all, I want you to thank you, Jaki, for kind of bearing your soul on here, you know, and really giving us an insight to your daily routine and your late diagnosis. And there's so much I want to pick up on, and I don't want to take all the time. And I'm sure we'll touch on subjects throughout the session. But it was so fascinating. You're saying you have these this constant daily issue. Now, you got diagnosed at 55. I'm sure there are many people that are sitting listening to this or are going to listen to this and think, oh my goodness, I recognize this. And they can start feeling, because they've gone down what we class, and we know there is no normal. There isn't a normal. And I'm the worst thing. And I said the other day, I said, oh, that's normal. But it's not normal. And I keep tripping myself up. But I think we've got so many people have been put into this singular way of living, an expectation, without thinking or being assessed or being allowed to be a little bit different from this programming normal. And it must play havoc emotionally and spiritually with your life. So as you said, when you got to 55 and you had that diagnosis, was that kind of a weight lifted off your shoulder and think, I'm not the only one, and I'm not struggling? And I'm sure there must be people that go through a lot of emotional turmoil and emotional health issues, shall we say, and mental health issues, that maybe don't know that they have this neurodiversity, and it's not picked up because we're put in that box. Mm. So can I ask how you come to get diagnosis, which may help other people along the way?
Okay, yeah, of course. So I've got 3 children. The youngest, when he was very little, was definitely a little bit different and went and had all sorts of things, from pictotherapy to whatever else. And when he was 13, he was diagnosed as being on the spectrum, and conversations were there. And it was just like, oh, you know, I said, I struggle with that, whatever else. And people, because you've been the problem one, the troubled one, the whatever else, everybody goes, oh, she's just jumping on the bandwagon. So they dismiss it totally. They ignore you. They just think you're trying to jump on somebody else's coattails and as though you're making it up. And then I met somebody. I worked for myself, and I met somebody at a training event, and she actually supported men who'd been in the forces and who had PTSD. And she turned around to me and she said, Jaki, she said, I think you've actually got PTSD. She said, but I actually think there's more to it than that. So I think you should go to, so in the UK, we have Department of Work and Pensions. They do something called Access to Work. So they help people who have got health problems and issues to work. She said, I think you should apply and see if you can get some help. And so I did. I got a work psychologist. And this work psychologist said to me, she said, I think you're either ADHD or you're autistic. She said, but actually you might be both. She said, I think you need to go to your doctors and see if you can get a diagnosis. Now, it took 4 years to get that diagnosis. So it didn't happen overnight. And I waited. And I'm very pleased I didn't go privately, because if you go privately, it's not really recognised that often, or some doctors don't recognise it. So you actually then can't get any support with it. So you can get a private diagnosis, but you can't get any support after that. So anyway, I was diagnosed and it took its time. So I got the ADHD on the 13th of October in 2019, and I got the autism on the 1st of April 2020. So they were a few months apart. And so the pandemic had just kicked in. We were all in lockdown. And I was like, oh, actually, this is amazing. Because I haven't got to go out. I haven't got to go to work meetings. I can be behind the computer. Nobody's going to think any the worse, because going out and doing some of those things is really difficult because you have to prepare everything. I have 2 places I feel safe. That's my home and my car. Because once I get in my car, I can shut the windows, I can shut the doors, I can put music or audiobooks on while I'm driving, but I know I'm on my way home or I'm on my way to wherever. So I've got these safety places. And so, I mean, I was very lucky that I got the diagnosis. I now actually have support workers to help me do my work. They act as my memory joggers. So when I've forgotten I've done a piece of work, or where I've stored something, or just anything to do with it, that I've got a meeting reminding me I've got these things, they take all the pressure off of those things that I can't remember or I really struggle with, and allow me to do the things I'm really good at with my work. And actually there are some things I'm good at and I absolutely adore and I love, but they take the day-to-day bits that were absolutely exhausting before. They take those away from me. They help me with them. And it's just a gift.
Cool. So it's a long process. Sorry, Scott. No, go on.
I was just wondering what you do. What is it you do for work that really drives you?
Okay, so what really drives me? I'm passionate about my work. I think there is nothing worse than being somebody who needs help and support and can't find it and can't access it. So actually, and that's from 2 things. That's from my lived experience of being in an abusive marriage, and then from being somebody who wasn't heard for so many years that something wasn't quite right, you know, because people don't listen. They just think you're playing up. And you're not, you're fighting your way through. So now what I do is I run, I don't earn any money from it. Let me be very honest about this, but I adore what I do. I run the UK's first network of connected area-based community maps, mapping charities, community groups, places where people can find help and support, or where they can volunteer, or where they can find places to connect with other people, reduce isolation, because I believe that everybody should have equal access and knowledge to what's going on around them in their communities, so they can be more connected. They can choose what's right for them. If they're struggling with isolation, they don't have to go to the doctors for mental health. They can find the local photography club, or the local steam train group, or the gardening and an allotment, or something like that. Or they could go and volunteer somewhere. Everybody is unique, and the solution for them is unique to them. Stop trying to pigeonhole everybody. Start empowering people to find the ways to live their best life themselves. So that's what I do.
And it's called adoddle.org.
Say that again, please.
It's called a doddle, as in it's a doddle, adoddle.org.
So I don't know if it means the same in the States, but a doddle means it's easy. I missed that, sorry.
I've never heard the term, that's why I asked.
So in this country, if you say, oh, it's a doddle, that means it's really easy. So we believe it should be really easy to find help and support, or really easy to find places to connect with others, or to find places to volunteer. So that's what the term a doddle means.
Wow.
David, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, there's so much coming out of this, and this is like you said, this is ringing some bells, I'm sure, for people that are listening to this, but it's also ringing a lot of bells for me. And I think we touched on it before we just went live, and we just had to hold back because we were going live. But I had the most supportive family but I never felt I fitted in. I couldn't find the routine for me. And they supported me in everything I'd done. I was ill during my 12 and 15 years, and I only had 9 days schooling in that 3 years. And they really had struggled in finding what was wrong with me. Anyway, they did sort it out. But at the age of 15, I just said I'm leaving school because I couldn't fit in. So I haven't got an examination to my name or anything like that. But I just felt safe, and I thought, I can't do this. I cannot sit in a group and sit down and do an examination because my information may be here, but it doesn't get past here. I hope that makes sense. And it won't come down on the paper. So I thought, I'm just going to go out and work. And that's what I found easier than putting the pressure on my head. And then at 16, something just said, okay, you're off to Australia. So myself, I went under a scheme and I went out myself to Australia. But when looking back, it was like I was looking for something where I fitted. But I had such a loving family, you would think it was there. But there was this constant search. And it wasn't until about 35 years ago I started coming into the field that I'm in now, with the light workers and everything. And I thought, oh, I've come home. And there must be so many people out there that are trying to struggle and think, what's wrong with me? Because I can't get a job that suits me. I can't fit in here. I can't fit in there. And it really must be a nightmare. When I look back, I think I just couldn't stand the job. So I just walked out, and it was just, I don't fit in here. And there was no chance of me trying. So it really feels that you're opening up a door that there must be so many people here in this world that are going through the same thing, but do not understand why they're going through it.
May I ask you a question, David? Because I find that very interesting. So I left school at 15 because I'd gone to boarding school, and actually I found it so difficult, exactly what you were describing. I found it so difficult. I actually, what they call in the UK, skived. So I stopped going to school. So I skived off school. I was away from boarding school for 2 weeks before they rang my mum, because I told the teacher who used to take me in because I used to just board weekly. And I told the teacher who gave me a lift on a Monday morning back into school, I told her that I was ill because mum was at work. She was a night nurse. And so the teacher gave the message to the school that I was ill. And it was 2 weeks before they realised that actually I was neither at school nor at home. I got into rather a lot of trouble, but it was because we were coming up to exam time and everything else. I could not do that. I could not sit the exams. I didn't understand it. School, socially, it became so confusing as a teenager. How do you navigate those relationships, those conversations, and everything? There's so much going on around you and everything else. But then what you said with the jobs, what I found, why I left a job, and this is the question to you, David, is I found that I would be excellent at a job to start with. I knew exactly what somebody wanted from me and I could deliver that. And then because I did such a good job, they changed the goalposts and gave me something else to do. Yeah. And my brain could not compute that extra that they gave me because they changed the goalposts. And I was suddenly like, I can't do this. I don't understand this. I don't understand what they want me to do. So I would leave. Does that ring any bells?
It does on some occasions. Yes, it does. Because I think I'm here and you do a good job. And then they say, oh, do you want a little bit more? Or we can help you here. And you're going, no, I'm comfortable here. I don't want to move in. And you're kind of forced in. And then I got bored and I thought, this is not for me. My brain switched off and I thought, I can't do this. So looking back, yes, that's very true.
Oh, seriously, I've got that with technology. Anytime they change something, I really have. You know, it's just like, no, don't change it on me, please.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing with this. You change it. Looking at websites these days, it's horrendous. They're not intuitive to be able to find things. You know, so it's just like you try to make them all singing or dancing, and yet for people. And I'd say I'm nothing like Jackie in some respects, but I'd say I've got hints of it, and I'd say there's hints of it throughout our family. And it's just like, actually, if I can't find what I'm looking for on this website, if I can't find it easy, if it's just not that intuitive, I'm out of here. I'm gone. And I just can't be doing with it. I use Webinar Jam. I've used it for nearly 10 years. They occasionally change things. I managed to get through it. Why would I change to something else, which I don't know how to use it? You know, so I get it. And I've actually worked with both adults and children with learning difficulties. The children actually with behavioural problems as well. That job didn't last very long. That was a full-time job. But the adults with learning difficulties, it was a shared care. So it was just for a few hours in a week with people, which I was able to do. And I did that for about 10 years. Sort of with different people during that, doing different things and supporting them to do different things. And because I didn't actually take any notice of what their diagnosis was, with one particular lady, I got her doing things that apparently her diagnosis said she couldn't do. Because I ignored, well, I didn't ignore it because I just didn't know. I didn't go out and research, oh, she's got this condition, whatever it was. I really couldn't tell you. She's got this condition, therefore you better check out what she can and can't do. It was just like, no, I'm taking her out. We'll get her to do whatever. And she got to do things that I understand it with the families, that it's just like, oh, it's easier for us to do it. But that doesn't help individuals. But with this particular individual, I get the feeling, as you've said, Jackie, if there's no memory joggers, she needed to be supported every time she did it. Whether there'd ever been the chance that eventually she would have got it, I don't know. But, and that's the sad part about, and obviously you've got a spectrum of, haven't you? There's no two ways about it. You've got them, because you've got dyslexia as well. Yeah. So, but if you're in the UK and you've heard of a guy called Jay Blades, who's a television presenter, and seriously, that program he did on his learning to read and the story of how it came about was absolutely amazing. He couldn't read because literally you gave him a book or a page and the words danced on the page. He just couldn't see a single word on the page because of the severity of the dyslexia he had. Yet he's a television presenter and he managed to get away with it by saying, look, just tell me what I've got to say and I'll say it. So he didn't have to read anything. But there were people who were really there to support him. And he has been able to, they've found a way of helping him to learn to read. And the one thing that he really wanted to always be able to do was read a bedtime story to his daughter. And he hadn't been able to do it. And she was an adult by this time, but he was still able to read her a story. So I think for all of us, we're all uniquely different.
Yeah.
We have our strengths, we have our weaknesses. We are not all here to be a top architect or a surgeon or whatever. We're here to be uniquely ourselves. And if we can support people within that to be uniquely themselves. Now, Jackie, I know with some of the advertising I did for this, I put the FRSA after your name. And seriously, I am so proud of my youngest sister FRSA is fellow, I wrote it down when we talked, fellowship, the Royal Society of Arts. Now, do you want to explain a little bit about what that is and why you received the invitation? Because you can only become a member by invitation.
Oh gosh, so to a certain extent you put me on the spot a little bit. So the RSA, Royal Society of Arts, Florence Nightingale was one. So I think I was very proud and grateful to be invited to become a fellow. And at the time I was just like, initially I was just like, I don't quite understand this. Why was I invited? And yes, okay, it was because of the work that I'm doing, but the work I'm doing is still very early stage in effect. There is so much more it can do and has the potential to do. As I said, I don't really earn money from it, but I don't do it because of money. But we had an external consultant look at the work we did or that we're doing and work out a value. Now, we've got about 3,000 charities and community groups on our maps at the moment, and they worked out the value of that last year to the charity and community sector was £1.8 million. Okay, and this is for a little company that ran on about £18,000 last year. Okay, so and it's not just me. I've got amazing tech and I've got my support workers, which is incredible. But I think I was given it because of that, and I'm honoured to have been given it. But at the same time, just because I've got letters after my name, I don't want to be a sheep. Because you can get into these things where, oh, I've got these letters, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm the other. And then you think you have to fit in that mold. But actually, what you have a responsibility to do is to ask questions, to not always go down that route and follow that. And as an example, about 15 years ago, I went to an amazing training in London. There were about 200-300 people there. You know, when they give you these warm-up games to do, you know, there's this warm-up exercise. And so we were told at the beginning of the day, we've got this amazing speaker coming in later on today. It's, you know, it's really difficult to get him. You really must listen to what he says, do what he says to get the most out of this and whatever else. So I'm like listening, but also not remembering, because 2 hours later when this person comes in, I've forgotten what you said to me 2 hours ago. But anyway, this guy came in, you know, very confident, went on the stage and he said, now this next exercise is really important. You must do what I say. And so he asked all of us to get on all fours on the ground. Okay, so hands and knees on the ground. And I would say 85% of the room straight down. Other 15%, that's correct, isn't it? Still stood. And he said, you come on, you're wasting time now. You all need to do this and whatever else. Ends up there are 3 of us. And then the final 2, apart from me, do it. And I'm the last one to get down. And then he turned round to all of us and he said, who are all of you? Are you all sheep? You don't know me from Adam. You haven't got a clue who I am. And because people have told you, you need to listen to me and do what I say. You have done it. You need to learn to ask questions. You need to challenge something that doesn't feel right. And you need to stand up for yourself, what your values are and everything else. And I thought that's so interesting. But he also said, you might be told that there's only one way of doing things, but it doesn't mean there is only one way of doing things. He said, so we're going to give you a series of games this afternoon. And you're going to have to think of alternate ways, still follow the rules, but listen to the words that are said. You can still follow the rules, but there's more than one way. And it was about things, there was just this whole range of things to do. And when you've got your brain to think outside of the box, which is what a neurodiverse brain has to do, because we are struggling all of the time to fit in with society around us. When you start to think outside of the box, there are so many more solutions and ways you can do things. And so sometimes we think about the fact that we are more accepting for a diverse community. We may be, but actually let's ask ourselves and challenge ourselves. Are we really? At what point would somebody be doing something or saying something that we really don't feel comfortable with? So where are our own boundaries? And is there a way that we can ask a question if somebody pushes us past our own boundaries, to say to them, I'm not quite understanding this. Can you tell me more? Can you whatever else? Because actually sometimes we pull ourselves away from certain people, and that's fine. We're allowed to make that choice. But often when we pull ourselves away, it's because there's something about them, the way they live their life, the way they do something that isn't right for us, doesn't fit in. And that's fine. But actually at the same time, that's not really embracing diversity. So we have permissions to say yes, to say no. But sometimes we maybe need to challenge ourselves. I know I'm talking a lot, but earlier on I told you I was a young parent. So I was a parent. I had my first child at 19 as a single parent. When I was a teenager, I was told that the facts of life were that when you had a boyfriend, this is what you did. So I took that literally, that if a boy asked you out, you were agreeing that was what you were going to do, to have a physical relationship, because that was the way it was described to me. When you have a boyfriend, this is what you do. So my social understanding was that it was a social expectation that if you said yes to go out with a boy, that was what you were agreeing to do. By the time I realized that was not the case and I'd got it wrong, it was too late. So how many young people are there who are neurodiverse, who do not understand the language, the terminology, the whatever else? How many young people are playing up, acting out because they're neurodiverse and they haven't been diagnosed? And people aren't taking the time to ask them the questions. What is it that you're struggling with? What's confusing? What don't you understand? Where is it? Or sometimes just sitting with them quietly and just being there for them. Just something to think about.
Scott.
Wow. So, for someone who says that she constantly has to be reminded of things, that example you gave, you found your boundaries, you found your inner, you don't ever lose who you are anymore. And that is an incredible strength. You don't lose that. I can hear the passion in your voice. I understand why you do what you do because of that passion, because you've been there. I'm sure we've all found that those who are the strongest are the ones that have had to go through fight through the jungles with the machetes and fight off the crocodiles and the snakes and everything else that life had to throw at you. And when you come out on the other side, you say, I made it through that. Not bad. Okay. I can make it through just about anything else. And I absolutely adore it. To your other point of the asking young people, we have interns that work with us. I'm in IT technology for the school department. And we have interns that come in, they're either in high school, they're in college. And I take an opportunity, I ask each one to kind of go and help me with a project. And I just sit and I listen. And I ask, so how's school going? And leave it at that. And the things that they say when you're quiet enough to be able to talk about those things. And I ask them about the job and what their impressions are. And it's just the listening and being there for them to support them. Some of these guys are juniors. They're 17 years old. They're not sure what they're doing, but they know they're getting paid a little bit of money for 8 weeks. But I ask them about what their aspirations are. I ask them about where they're going to go, what they're going to do. And it's interesting because most teenagers don't like talking to adults, number one. My grandchildren being, very good about that. They would rather deal with their phones than, their grandfather. But it's that time. And I find that, and the one thing I always asked my parents was to give my children time, because it was at the time when you're struggling and you're trying to raise your kids, the only thing you don't have is time. And I always ask my parents to give my kids time, because I thought that was the most important. So now that I'm older, My kids have grown. I have my grandchildren. I try to give them time. I try to give them experiences. But also, I try to take that and bring it to each and every young person I meet, that if they want to speak, I always set the intention to be able to allow them to listen without judgment. That I would listen without judgment, and it's amazing what comes out. Thank you.
Yeah. You might be the only person in their life at that point in time who has given them an opportunity to speak and to listen to them. Because quite often the parents might be at the end of their tether. They're, as you say, trying to juggle and bring up, and they don't have that time and everything else. Their friends are all interested in what they're doing and whatever else. You might be that only person at that stage in their life who's asked them a question and who's prepared to sit and listen. You may have given them the greatest gift without even realizing it. Even if they didn't answer you, the fact you asked and you were prepared to listen, you maybe gave them the greatest gift.
Thank you. Thank you.
David.
Yeah, there's a lot, so much. I'm finding this so fascinating, but there's so much being brought up to me. And I'm trying to put it into one kind of question for you. But as you were speaking, and I know we're speaking a lot about, this is something that is most probably affecting more of the population than we will ever know. One, because of the old way we used to do things, and we say, oh, well, you're just going to get on with that, and you work through your difficulties, and you're fighting against what may be natural for you, but you've just been brought up in that environment. Oh, we just get on with it and smile. But what I'm seeing at the moment and what's been brought up, I really feel in some way very sad for the young people that are in this world at the moment. I really feel sad because I know the old-fashioned childhood we had, where there was so much freedom, there was so much imagination being played and everything else. And that allowed us in many ways to understand ourselves, and we played so much. Now it's like, okay, this fad on this particular platform, I'm not going to mention any names, I don't want to get sued. But you've got, okay, this platform is all singing, all dancing. And then they're expected to do this routine or sing this song as good as somebody else. So they're forcing them into a gift that they may not be strong at, then they're failing. And it's stopping them being who they are, which is kind of, in a way, messing about with their neurodiversity, I would say. And is that not more damaging? But the pressure is so on. And I think we've got to ease the head a little bit more and encourage people to ease this and start feeling what is right. We've come into such an analytical AI age where everything is here, and in the educational system, it's taken us away from who we truly can be and who we are, because we're all expected to do this one thing without questioning, without asking and researching more. But if we use the body to feel what is right, as you said before, what do I like? What do I want to reach out for? That's where the education systems can support you in being all you are, and most probably recognizing that there may be a neurodiversity within you that could be encouraged and heighten your skills and gifts as you go through this world. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. And I think I agree 90% with what you've just said.
Okay.
And then there's an element of me that says, if we make things too easy for people. So I was very lucky. And so I believe I was lucky that I was not just diagnosed as a child. Because if I had been diagnosed as a child, would everybody have made allowances for me and let me get away with things and not pushed me to do my best and to be my best? So I was very lucky. People say to me, Jackie, you're a good communicator. Sarah's a very good communicator. We were brought up in a small family hotel. From the age of 7, I was working in the small family hotel, whether it was doing a bit of dusting, doing drying up to start with, because I wasn't trusted with the washing up, then doing the washing up, then doing the waitressing, then having a job as, as a paper girl and things like that. But I had to communicate with people. We had strangers in our home for the summer months every year, and we had to learn to communicate. And I invariably got it wrong, said the wrong thing, got into trouble. But through that, I was taught how to communicate and how to put on the mask. So when I finish off after here, I will have a very quiet spell, because that's what my brain and my body will need, because that's the way that I can cope with this, if that makes any sense. But I was taught to communicate. Then I struggled with different things, from going from job to job to job and learning about myself and learning what skills I had and finding ways around it. If somebody had made that too easy for me, I might have been sat in a room doing nothing, never making anything of my life, not being a particularly nice person, being spoiled, expecting everything to be done for me. I'm not, because I had to struggle through those things. So how do we do this to get this right, to nurture people, to listen to them, to enable them to become who they are, to make the most of it, but at the same time not mollycoddle them and stop them from having the experiences they need to have to become the best version of themselves? That's why I say only 90% I agree with you, because I think there's this element, and I don't know what the answer is, but we don't want to make it too soft.
No, I understand.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When our parents had that hotel, and it was five letting rooms, that's what it was. Our grandparents, our mum's parents, lived in the flat in the house as well. It was a beautiful old Victorian house. And then there was the 5 of us, because we've got a middle sister as well. But we had a spell, and it was usually for the month of June, over 2 or 3 years, where we had, and in those days it was called mentally handicapped. It's it's not called that anymore, but we had a group, and it was some nuns that would bring some ladies, and I think they were in their 40s, 50s, 60s, to holiday in the hotel. And they come for 10 days, and they bring sort of like 3 groups of 10 for 10 days. And I remember then, and I was sort of so mid to late teens, and I remember thinking then, who's got the handicap? And I don't like the term them or us, but I've learned since that there is no separation. But the term, who's got the handicap, them or us? I'm in my teens, I'm working in my parents' hotel. I started doing Saturdays and then the summer holidays working sort of in the local sort of news agents. I was doing paper rounds, so again, like Jackie, I was working from a pretty young age. So no such thing as pocket money. If you didn't work, you didn't get any money, So that's how it had to run in the family. But I was thinking, they're here, they're having a holiday. Everything is sorted for them. They're fed. They've got clothes for them. They're having a lovely time. And here we are having to work to earn money to be able to buy the things that we would like. Now, I know that was a very simplistic view of it from a teenager who really didn't understand. But it was very much matter, well, who has got the disability? And I felt that actually we, the so-called normal people, had it much harder than they did. But okay, that's how, and there's no doubt there are still groups like that, that their mental abilities are such that they require that sort of support. I know certainly the young lady I worked with, and I started working with her, she was 30, so she's quite a bit older than that now. So yes, there are still people who require that amount, but you know, we are all uniquely different. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. What should be being encouraged, regardless of who you are, is what are your strengths? What do you enjoy doing? What gives you pleasure? What gives you the inspiration to move forward with something? What really speaks to you and gets your passion? Because if you can find that for everybody, they are the cogs of the mechanism that will make our world go round. And while we aren't being true to who we are in the way that we are able to work with that, then our world is not working in the way, that mechanism is not working in the way it should. So the more support we can give to people to help themselves, because this is a conversation Jackie and I have numerous times with the word service. I hate the word because I was a waitress. I cleaned rooms. I worked in a shop. You're always doing things for people. That's what service means to me. I'm not here to do things for people. I am here to help people to help themselves, to support them with their healing journey, whatever people want to call it. When we can be supported to step into our own power, our own passion, and that's what Jackie has, that's what I have, that's what the four of us have. We have a passion for what we bring and the support we wish to bring to others. That's what it's all about. And yeah, I'd say that there's no two ways about. I've certainly got certain aspects of. Am I thinking about going and get diagnosis? I probably wouldn't get one, but I do have my glitches, and I accept that. And I know things about myself, and providing I know them, I can work with them. So, yes. Jackie. Yeah.
I think Scott wants to go.
Scott.
You?
I just wanted to say that as far away we were raised as our lives have been, I did a paper out. I did service. I was a waiter. I did all of those things, and I've always felt that those helped me become who I am in the way that I react and act towards people, and the interchange, because so many people just don't talk, they don't communicate, they don't connect, and I think that that's seriously important. And I love, as much as we can complain about it, Miss Sara, it also helped us to be who we are.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
100%.
I just think we're each on our journey, and I think, and I'm a true believer of we made our contract. You know, so this is my journey, and you know, yes, there are things I would definitely prefer not to have experienced in my life, but I wouldn't change anything because I wouldn't be me now. And I remember when I was younger, people saying, you know, it's when you get older that you actually finally start to feel comfortable with yourself and have more confidence and everything else. And I never really believed that, but I do now. I'm more comfortable with who I am. I'm more comfortable with being able to make my choices, with being able to say. And if I don't make my point about something, or if I don't stand up for myself, or if I don't say, actually, no, I'd rather not do that. Actually, the only person I've got to blame is myself, because I've got a mouth, I've got a voice, I've got the ability, I know my feelings better than anybody else in this world. And if I can't say it, then I've got nobody else to blame. Just me, you know, it's my choice. So instead of blame, I learn from it and go, okay, why did I not stick up for myself then? What was it about the interaction that stopped me from having the courage to say, what might I be able to do next time? So I don't look at it and blame it. I don't look at it and feel bad. I look at it and think, oh, okay, how can I do better next time? How can I make that better? How can I? And I do that with anything in life, whether it be so very privileged. I may live in Devon, but occasionally now with my work, I get to go to London and go to the House of Lords. And earlier this year, I went to Downing Street. And so I've done some amazing things. But if somebody knew the effort it took me to go and do those, it's huge. I have it all planned out. I have a route printed out. I've checked it however many times before. I've got to have my car. I've got to know where this is, that is, and whatever else. And the work I put into being able to go and do those things is huge. And when I'm there, nobody would know. Nobody would know that inside I'm on a countdown clock, that it's this number of hours or minutes until I get back on the train, until I'll be back at my car, until I'll be back at home and everything else. I count everything down in timers. I've had a countdown timer going on in my head all day for this call for this evening, for knowing that I need to have my energy here and right and show up as I would want somebody to show up for me if I wasn't sure if I was neurodiverse, or I was thinking I might be neurodiverse, and having somebody show up and actually speak in a way that gives me permission to go out and find out if that's what I'm thinking is for me. So I'm showing up today because please don't be afraid to investigate it. And if your family tell you, oh, don't be so silly, your family are not you. You are you. You are the only person who can be you. If you think there's a chance and you want to explore it, do. There are people who do not want to explore it because they think it will make them less than. If you don't want to explore it, don't. But remember, you're the person in control of your own life. You make those choices, whether you follow up on it or you don't, whether you investigate or you don't, whether you spend time on your self-development or you don't. The choice is always yours. And somebody who is in an abusive, if somebody's in an abusive relationship and they go, but it's not my choice, somebody else is pushing me into this and pushing me into that, you still have the choice. You can leave. And I know you can leave because I did it myself. I left. So I know you can. I know it's scary. I know it's big. But you can make these changes one tiny step at a time. Make the changes. Investigate it. Find out. But be proud of who you are, because it doesn't matter. We're all ourselves, all unique. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yes. So as we're coming to a close, sort of David, any final comments or anything that you would like to make?
Well, I found this, as I said before, really eye-opening and really some great awareness. So thank you, Jaki, for sharing. But I just hope that if anybody is listening to this and feeling a little bit and recognizing any of this, it can feel really isolating for you. The point is, there are more people aware than you would even think. You are not on your own out there from what we've spoken about. So please, get in touch with somebody like Jaki or whatever. I'm not putting work on you, Jaki, but if you want to point a call, or you just think, I need to do something about this, you are not the only person out here. And I think that is important for people to hear.
Scott.
Again, incredible, the person that you show up as. I know I live with an empath who is worried about absolutely everything and has made 10 reasons why everything is going to go terribly wrong, and has already, we're going away to the beach next weekend. She's planned all of these scenarios about the weather and everything else, rather than just, for me, I'm very different than she. I'm a go along, get along. I can be anywhere, anytime, and I accept what is. She has to fight through those battles, and that's okay. And I let her fight those battles within her own self, so that when she's got everything the way she needs it, then we can step forward. And I thank you. And just thank you for allowing other people to have that voice out there, letting them know they're not alone.
I want to thank you all for giving me an opportunity to speak, because I think for anybody, the more that people have the courage to speak about what their differences are, how they feel about it, how they've learned, whatever else, the more we make it more acceptable in the world around us. We break down those barriers. And what you've given me the opportunity to do this evening is to really speak. And I felt that you've really listened and you've heard and you've given some, I've loved the reaction. And I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity. Yeah, just thank you. And yes, people can reach out. Yes, time is limited. If I can do something to help, then I will. You know, that's the nature of the beast, isn't it? You know, it might be that the help is that I say there's this amazing audiobook or there's this amazing something else. But if I can, I will.
Jaki, thank you so very much. I have put the website address up for dodl.org. Now, I know that's obviously UK, but folks, even if you are in the States, I'm assuming they can get in touch with you through the website.
They can get, yes, there's a contact button there. Yes,
absolutely. So please, because if Jaki can give you advice, I know she will. And that make suggestions. I don't like the word advice. Make suggestions. I know she will. So yeah, please do suggestions. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, folks, for listening. Thank you to David. Scott, we've just lost. So thank you, Scott. But thank you so much, Jaki, for agreeing to do this with us. Next week, we've got Upgrade Your Cells with Sound Energy. So David's going to be back. Joanne Bracken's going to be joining us. It's going to be myself. Sadly, Patricia's not been very well, so she won't be joining us. There'll be the three of us bringing you some sound energy. And sound, folks, is something that is amazing for everyone. You talked about putting music on in the car, Jaki. Sound energy can really make a difference in people's lives, whatever is going on in your life. So suggestion is that hopefully you'll join us for that. Again, Jaki, thank you so much. David, so thank you. And Scott, it's been a real pleasure. I hope you'll join us again soon, folks. Good night, or goodbye, actually, because it's night here in the UK. Bye.
Bye.